Go ahead. Turn it up. It's the Record Machine Show with your host, Jimmy Howe.
Down in Hollywood town, the lost and found come to find their way, walking outside the feelings they hide, putting their pride through well-known pace. Stranger, I know you. We learn to walk together, loners, wondering whether we really are. I'd like to show you images of sister, brothers standing off from one another, but not very far. Down in Hollywood town, the lost and found come to find their way, walking outside the feelings they hide, putting their pride through well-known paces, stepping on stars and shining on the cars that pass them by. Their heads are high and their hearts are low down, dragging as they go, reaching out to know those other faces. It's such a small world until it's on your shoulders, and warm friends start growing colder as love grows apart. To find a kind word, we search in all directions, hungry for some small affection in each other's heart. Down in Hollywood town, the lost and found come to find their way, walking outside the feelings they hide, putting their pride through well-known paces, stepping on stars and shining on the cars that pass them by. Their heads are high and their hearts are low down, dragging as they go, reaching out to know those other faces. Down in Hollywood town, the lost and found come to find their way, walking outside the feelings they hide, putting their pride to well-known places, stepping on stars and shining on the cars that pass them by. Their heads are high and their hearts are low down, dragging as they go, reaching out to know those other faces. Down in Hollywood town, the lost and found come to find their way, walking outside the feelings they hide, putting their pride to well-known places, stepping on stars and shining on the...
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome singer-songwriter Harriet Schock. Harriet, how you doing?
Hi, I'm fine.
Where are you calling from today?
Los Angeles.
Oh,
That's
nice.
where I live.
Oh,
Where are you?
I'm in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in New Jersey, Bergen County, about maybe 10 minutes outside New York City, but I moved down here in 2018.
Okay. Well, I was born in Dallas, and I moved out here in the 70s, so.
Wow. What made you move out there? The music biz?
Well, I was married to an actor at the time, and he came out here, and then we got a divorce, and I was in the music business. So it wasn't really the music business that made me move out here, but it's certainly what made me stay.
So tell me about your musical background. When did you first get involved in music?
Well, at 4 years old, my father taught me to play the piano. He played marimba and cello and everything. And so he would show me songs, and he'd tell me the chords, and eventually I would say, I know. So he discovered I was playing by ear. So I guess it started at 4 years old, but I didn't obviously get serious about music until, the 70s, when I came out here.
Wow. Now, I believe every band or artist is influenced by someone. Who were some of your musical influences growing up?
Well, I always say Ray Charles. People may not be able to hear it, but for me, that was a major influence. And then, later on, pop music, Carole King, Carly Simon, things like that. But no, when I was a child, I was listening to Ray Charles and R&B because I had a nanny who was black, and I listened to her radio. My white mother, as I call my other one, the one who birthed me, she didn't like the radio, so I got to listen to the radio with Ernestine Jefferson, and she was listening to Ray Charles and Chuck Berry and all sorts of good stuff. So those were major influences of mine.
Did you take lessons or go to any music schools when you were growing up?
I did take piano lessons, and I would have the piano teacher play it just one time so I could see if I really wanted to learn that piece, and then I would be playing it by ear and pretending to read because I was just never a good reader, So, yeah, I took piano lessons in high school, and then after college, when I came out here, I studied music theory with someone named Robert Yost, who used to teach at Eastman School of Music, but he was just teaching in night school, and I learned how to make my own lead sheets that way. And I learned some theory. I took some theory in college, too, but I was an English major. So most of my formal training was listening to other people.
Very nice. Now, in 1975, Helen Reddy scored a number 8 Billboard Hot 100 song with your tune, Ain't No Way to Treat a Lady. How did Helen wind up recording your song?
Well, I recorded it on my first album, which is called Hollywood Town, and it got played on the radio just enough for Helen to hear it, and she decided to record it. So that's how she got it.
Wow, very cool. Now, another tune, First Time on a Ferris Wheel, was another hit by you and Misha Siegel for Motown Records. How did that come about?
Well, it was actually in the film that Motown made called Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon. And it was suggested by Suzanne Costin at Joe Bed. We were signed to Motown's publishing company. And we wrote it and took it to Mr. Gordy, Berry Gordy, and he said, there isn't a love scene in this movie. Why are you writing a love song? So we played it for him. Actually, I wasn't there. Misha played it for him. And he called the head of TriStar at 2 a.m. and got him over there and said, we're reshooting the end of the movie because this song is going in it. So that was a very exciting chapter.
Wow, that's a very cool story. Now, when writing a new song, does the melody or the lyrics come first for you?
Well, it depends on if I'm writing with someone. In the case of First Time on a Ferris Wheel, Misha had the entire melody. I watched him write it, and it was like riding a horse. I didn't want it to move at all. I just wanted what he was doing to happen. It was great. And then I went off, as I say, like a rat with my cheese, and I wrote the lyric. But when I'm writing by myself, I generally have something I want to communicate, and that impetus comes first, and then melody comes shortly thereafter. But I also teach songwriting, and I teach it a little differently. But melody and lyrics sometimes come together, but the impetus to communicate comes first.
Now, what tools or instruments are essential in your songwriting?
Well, for me, it's the piano. I'm not a guitarist. I've never been able to play it. My fingers won't do that. And even a ukulele is too hard for me. But piano is just really, I feel so inspired when I'm near a piano and I get to play it. So that is the most important tool. But then I also have Master Writer, which is a program that has not only a rhyming dictionary and a thesaurus, but idioms and all sorts of things that are very helpful to a songwriter. I've written 3 or 4 musicals that I wouldn't have been able to write without it. Barry DeVorzon created it, and I've used it for years. Wow,
sounds interesting. Now, this podcast is going to feature 2 of your songs, Hollywood Town and My Heart. What's the story behind those 2 songs?
Well, those are quite old. I'm glad that you know about them. Hollywood Town was the title song of my first album. It's also the name of a documentary that has just been finished about me called Hollywood Town, the Harriet Schock Story. But the reason I wrote that song was that I was playing gay clubs in the 70s, which is the only place I knew you could play original material, and I didn't do covers.
Mm-hmm.
So I found this place called the Bitter End West, and I went there every Monday night, and all these guys would come, not to see me, I assure you, but eventually they did start listening, and they liked my songs, and then I got to know them, and they sort of represented Hollywood to me. Even though it was West Hollywood, it was slightly different. But I wrote the song Hollywood Town about them because they, when you go out on Hollywood Boulevard,
Mm-hmm.
it looks substantially different from one block over, which is Sunset, which looks pretty normal. But then one block away, it's Hollywood Boulevard. It was like, who are these people and how did they get there? So I wrote it for my audiences, basically.
Okay. And the other tune, My Heart?
Oh, yeah. My Heart. I'm not really sure whom I was speaking about in My Heart. It's funny, my mother heard it and she said, that's not about me. So that was my first inkling that perhaps it was about her. But anyway, it's become a kind of favorite in the Philippines. A lot of people have made videos of this song whom I don't know, but I'm happy that they have fan sites for it. It's just, it's a song about my heart and all of the tricks it pulls and the things it goes through, and how it talks about the worn path back to a particular person. It always ends up there. So I guess that's what this song was about.
Great song. I love that song.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, over the years, your songs have appeared on albums by artists like Charlene, Roberta Flack, Howard Johnson, Jeannie Kendall, Abby Lane, Manfred Mann, Johnny Mathis, and even Snuff, to name a few. Are you currently working with any other artists at the current time?
No, I wasn't working with any of them either. The way it happened is there was a station here in LA called KNX-FM, and they still have a tribute station online to that station, and they still play a couple of things of mine. But they played every cut from all three albums on 20th Century Records. So those songs got heard by other artists because they were on the radio.
Oh.
And it was very helpful to me. It was like my publishers weren't really necessarily going and getting the cuts. Now, my publisher did get the Johnny Mathis cut because I never recorded that song. It was called Ooh, What We Do. And it was a great thrill to me to be in the studio with Johnny Mathis, having held his albums as a child and walking around the house with them with my head pressed to his picture. I just thought, oh, wouldn't it be great someday, to meet him? And then I'm in the studio with him singing the song because he didn't know it very well. I'm in the vocal booth teaching it to him. And so that was a big thrill, but I didn't ever record that song, but it was enough for me that Johnny Mathis did.
That's awesome. Now, are there any artists out there right now that you would like to work with?
Well, of course, I would like to work with all of them, but most of the artists I admire, like Pink and Lady Gaga, they're incredible songwriters, so they're not calling me up at the moment, But I do, I love having songs in film and TV, and I like solving the dramatic problem that a filmmaker might have with the song or whatever. That's one of my favorite activities. So I'm not so much working with artists as I, am just writing my own songs and hoping that film and TV picks them up, as they so often have.
Now, are you currently working on any new material for yourself that's going to be coming out anytime soon?
Well, I don't know if you're aware that my newest album called Paintings is just now coming out. I didn't release it yet, but I did have a CD release concert, and so a number of people have it, but I haven't actually released it to the streaming services yet, but that's coming up now.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's 15 songs that I've written over the last 15 or so years since Breakdown on Memory Lane came out. So it is definitely my newest album, and there are 15 songs on it. So except for a couple of things I wrote after it was made.
Okay.
No, I'm not working on anything except, this film, this documentary about me was created from fundraising on Indiegogo. And one of the perks, the thing you bribe the people to give you money and then you offer them something, it's called a perk. One of them was for $2,500 for the campaign. I didn't get the money. It went for the film. Harriet will write a song for you.
Nice.
And 5 people paid that. So the first 3 are on the album. But since the album came out, like at the CD release, someone was there and he heard the songs I wrote for other people and he said, I want one of those. So I wrote one for him and one other person after the album came out. So except for those songs, no, I've been too busy with the release of the film and the album.
Now let's talk about the film. It's titled Hollywood Town. It premiered in December, this past December. It's a story about your music, your life, and your career. Can you talk about that? Like, how did it come about?
Well, how it came about was I played a concert at a club that is now closed, unfortunately, called the Coffee Gallery Backstage. It's in Altadena, and it's owned by Bob Stain, who started my career in the 70s at a place he owned called the Ice House, which is now a comedy club, but at the time you could play there. And he said, do 6 songs and show. I said, what do you mean, and show? He said, talk to the people. So now it's kind of my trademark that I introduce every song. So I got 2 record deals from playing his club. And then many years later, I played his new club, the Coffee Gallery Backstage. And Tom Solari, a filmmaker, was in the audience. And he thought, wow, wouldn't it be great? There are only 45 people here. I would like more people to experience what I'm experiencing right now. So he shot, my full concert with the band at Celebrity Center, which is a much larger venue. And that's the bedrock of the film, is a concert. And so then he interviewed me for 2 days. Then he interviewed the people who started my career, fans, friends, things like that. And he put it all together as to tell the story of how I started and where my career went, and songwriting kind of in general. And if you like songwriting, I think you might like it. Mm-hmm. But I was amazed at the response on the 19th of December. I'm very fortunate that these people, many of whom didn't know me, mm-hmm. were not just racing for the exit because I'm an unknown, but apparently the way he put it together had some degree of universal appeal. I hope it continues that way.
Now, the movie premiered in December, but will it be out for everyone to see? And when and where will we be able to see the film?
Well, we shouldn't have really called it a premiere because it was just a first screening, because a premiere implies that you've already,
released
gone to festivals and all. But we haven't done that yet. So he's still working on the film, believe it or not. There's still things he wants to do to it. And so after it's done, he plans to send it to specific film festivals. And, I'm willing to go there to be interviewed if they want and things like that. So that's the next step. And then if someone decides it's something they want to purchase for like Netflix or Hulu or something, that's when it becomes available to watch. But it's not available right now because it's being sent to festivals. Nice.
Yeah, like a streaming service like Netflix or Tubi. That would be another place that the film can be seen on, definitely.
Well, that would be great if they decided they wanted to have it.
Now, you've written some songs for some movies and TV shows like Delta Force, Colombian Connection, The Last Dragon, The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking and the Partridge Family, even Benny Hill. Now, when writing a song for TV and film, how does that process work? Is it a lot different than normally?
Well, if you are writing it for the film, like Benny Hill just used Ain't No Way to Treat a Lady, and certain films you mentioned just used cuts off my album. But in the case of The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking, the director of that film talked to someone who mentioned me, and it's an odd story, but he said, okay, she wrote Ain't No Way to Treat a Lady. She must be a feminist. Pippi Longstocking is a feminist. This is how things work in this business. So I want her to write the songs. So anyway, I thought to myself, what do I have in common with this red-haired girl who lives alone with a horse and a monkey? Well, I'm independent. I was a free-spirited child, so I co-wrote with Misha Siegel all the songs for that film. And then when it came to, The Last Dragon, as I've told you, we wrote First Time on a Ferris Wheel, and I thought, what do I have in common with this young African-American man who's a virgin, who's falling in love for the first time and studying Kung Fu? Mm-hmm. I thought, well, I've fallen in love for the first time, so I wrote it from that viewpoint. I try to have something in common with these characters I'm writing from.
Nice. Now, besides being a singer-songwriter, you're also a teacher. How does one become a student of your songwriting class, and where would they take this course?
Well, I teach exclusively on Zoom now. I had people around my dining room table, and then I had people online, but, by email. But now that we have Zoom and it's so much easier to teach people who are on the East Coast, because I'm in Los Angeles, and some of my students are in Austria and England.
Wow.
So it's much easier for me. They just go, they go to harrietschock@gmail.com, my email address, or my website, and contact me and tell me they want to study with me, and I'll tell them when the next class is starting. But they can also do it just one-on-one. But I've been doing that since 1986 when USC called me and said, we want to have songwriting taught here and we want you to do it. And I said, well, it can't be taught, so no. And then they called me the next year and said, no, you really have to do this. And I've been doing it ever since, and I truly love it. I'm such a better writer now that I teach it.
Very cool. Now, outside of music, do you have any other hobbies or interests?
Movies. I go to a movie with my husband every Friday night. We've seen everything. I don't have television, unfortunately, so I couldn't see the Golden Globes, but I had seen everything that won pretty much. And I love to read. Mm-hmm. I love right at the moment I'm into Rick Bragg. I just want to read everything he ever wrote. And then I love movies. Those are my two passions. I don't really do sports, but I sit there and watch movies, and to me they're all like little songs, and songs are like little movies. So I think I learn a lot by going to movies. Now,
you said you like reading. Any plans on writing a book?
Well, I already have a book. It's called Becoming Remarkable for Songwriters and Those Who Love Songs.
Oh, okay.
But it's a collection of 48 articles that had been published that I wrote, and someone put them in sections and stuff. And when people study with me, they get it, and a lot of people just get it if they like art in general. But the whole thing of writing a book or a memoir, when I heard about this movie, I thought, well, you do it, because I don't remember stuff, and I kind of like what's happening in the present, mm-hmm. and dredging up everything and trying to get the dates and the names. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that.
Now, do you have a website that you'd like to promote?
Oh, sure. Well, harrietschock.com, but it's SCHOCK, and Harriet is IET, and it is not like the Marriott Hotel for some reason. People spell it wrong. So HARRIETSCHOCK.com, and then I'm on everything else. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and everything. So
the info for your songwriting classes, your music, the movie premiere, all that's up on the website, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Uh-huh.
Now, is there anything you'd like to mention that we didn't talk about today?
Wow. Well, I really appreciate the fact that Joe introduced us, because he's a longtime friend of mine, Joe Viglione. And let me see. I guess just I think it's really important that people who are writing songs are willing to communicate, as opposed to a lot of people think of it as a system of rhyming. You actually need to be communicating something to a real person. It makes it so much more emotionally impactful. So that's what I have my students doing, and every step of my step-by-step method enables them to communicate at all times. And so it's a much easier way to go about it than what most people go through. So I guess that would be it, that if you're interested at all in creating with songwriting, I would be happy to help you, but even if you don't contact me, remember that it is a communication, and continue communicating every step of the way.
Awesome. Well, Harriet, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really had a great time chatting with you.
Well, thank you. I love your voice. It's very good. You have the perfect voice for this sort of thing. And I appreciate your contacting me, and, just let me know when I can hear it and send it to others.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to seeing that film when it comes out.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
All right, you have a wonderful day, all right?
You too. Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
My heart overprotected its firstborn, sorely neglected the last torn pages of the book it had learned by heart. My heart runs at the first sign of danger, opening up to the strangest strangers, till time can tear us apart, along with my heart.
The Record Machine Show is a weekly radio podcast produced by Jimmy Howell Productions. All rights reserved. For information regarding distribution or adding this podcast to your website, please visit our contact page at therecordmachineshow.com to submit your request. Thanks for listening. See you next time on The Record Machine Show.
The Record Machine Show.